welcome back to ReCall The Midwife. We are a fan podcast, and each week we watch an episode and talk about it. I'm Becky.
I'm Alex.
I'm Jen. A reminder that this week's episode deals with birth anxiety, homophobia, gambling. So if those topics are ones you would prefer to skip this time, we understand and hope you join us for the next one. In this week's episode, everyone is gearing up for the World Cup and is involved in some way. Fred has a bet going that is very risky, and each of the nuns represent a country on their elimination table. The trainee midwives have arrived, and we meet the young midwife who will be staying at Nonnatus House, Nancy. She's lived in a convent most of her life and is used to a more formal setting than Nonnatus House. She quickly settles in, but when she is too rushed in a home visit with Mrs. Greenie, it results in some reprimand from Sheila. Mrs. Greenie goes into labor during the World Cup final and without the support of her husband must seek care herself and ends up at the doorstep of Nonnatus. Nancy helps her, and with the aid of Sister Monica Joan, Nancy turns a corner and Sister Monica Joan finds her way back to faith. Meanwhile, Phyllis is connected to Michael Lewis on district rounds. Michael is home visiting from his job at a posh London hotel when Phyllis reads his aftercare paperwork following a hospital visit for an infected cyst on his back. She discovers that not only does he have an STD, but that he got it from gay sex while working. Michael comes out to his parents, but it goes badly, and the family has to do a lot of work to repair their relationship. Lastly, Cyril has won an award. What?
Nothing.
What?
Carry on. It was the gay sex. It just made me laugh. Carry on.
Michael comes out to his parents, but it goes badly, and the family has to do a lot of work to repair their relationship. Lastly, Cyril has won an award for his work as a student of civil engineering, and it comes with a cash prize. He thinks of different ways to spend the money, but ultimately realizes that the thing he wants most is a future with Lucille, so he buys an engagement ring and proposes. Trixie also reconnects with Matthew for Jonathan's christening, and she offers support and guidance as he is still finding his way as a single dad. Well, that was a lot to write a synopsis about, and I'm just going to say, girls, I'm calling it early in the season, I know, but I think we have found season 10's absolute worst father in Mrs. Greenie's husband.
Yeah, we have.
He sucks. I'm not going to do like I did last episode and say my zero first off, but when he tells her to hold on while she's in labor because he wants to watch the whole game, I was getting ready to throw things at the television. I'm just not even going to lie. He literally... He drove me crazy. I don't know what order we're going to talk about anything in, but I'm sorry. I just had to give you that hot take. Fresh out of the oven.
Well, I was a bit like, my God, a lot happened in 12 minutes because she was like 12 minutes left of the game, and then she was still giving birth when the game was on. But then I remembered there's 30 minutes extra time on that as well, another 15 minutes in between. So I was like, fair enough, actually.
And they would they have had a 15-minute break after the game?
Yeah.
They have like
15
another
minutes,
half.
then 30. Yeah.
Then 30, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of football timing that I don't know, but I was just like, you suck, sir.
Let's talk about Michael's storyline first, because
this is a heartbreaker. This is a heartbreaker, you guys.
Well, Beryl's story leads into Nancy and Sister Mojo and things. So I just think,
let's talk about Michael first. Yeah.
Did you recognise Bex, his mum?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember where from? I'll give you a clue. She was in a sitcom in like the 90s.
Was she in Bread?
No. She was in, do you remember there was a sitcom called May to December about a solicitor? And she worked in his office and he married a much younger woman.
I do remember May to December, but I couldn't.
She was the young Hillary who was in the office who acted all silly all the time. And that's the last time I've seen her. And yeah, it was just mad that she was the mum.
And now she's just popped up in Call The Midwife.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Well, someone else has popped up in this episode for me, but I'll talk about that later.
Whoa.
Yeah, that made it sound well more exciting than it was. It's not exciting at all.
So
Michael's bellboy, go on, yeah.
Works at a hotel up in central London. So I didn't recognise the name of the hotel, but it's basically a fancy London hotel.
It's called the Pendleton, I want to say.
I think they didn't want to say, he works at the Ritz. Do you know what I mean? Because they basically said it was like a knocking. Did they call it a knocking shop?
But basically, but he says that like rich and famous people come there. Like his thing that he bragged about is that he opened a taxi door for Sophia Loren.
Yes, it's got to be the equivalent of like the Ritz or Claridge's or
the Parthenon. I don't know.
Oh, what about the Savoy?
Yeah, something of that ilk.
That's where my granddad used to work.
Mm-hmm.
He did not used to work like Michael. That I know of.
Well, listen.
I mean, I could ask my mum, but I think she'd be very offended and tell me off.
Never can tell. Never can tell.
So Michael is only 17 years old.
He's like literally, like they say in the show, he's 17 and like 3 months and 10 days or something. Like they literally talk about how old he is, like so specifically.
And his mum and dad are so proud of him. His dad's an undertaker. It's got nothing to do with anything.
I really loved his mum and dad until obviously then I didn't.
Yeah. So his mum's chatting to him and she says that he's sat really awkwardly in his chair and he says he's got a bad back from lifting suitcases.
Wait, can we just rewind though to like a slightly more lighthearted and happier part of this where where the mom goes to Fred and Violet's because he's coming home and she nips and she's like, "Oh, Vi, you haven't closed yet, have you? I have to get some treats for my Michael that's on his way home for and she's like, "Oh no, come on in, love." And then she comes in and she switches the sign around to say they're closed, but then I can't remember the line, but she says, "Oh, I'll have a beat." She says Beano and Dandy again. Yeah. She says another thing and another thing
or something.
Yeah, she orders like 5 things and like Fred calls out to Reggie, a bloody blah 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 mate, you know, like on the double or whatever, and then Fred is getting this stuff ready at the beginning. It's so darn cute. I don't know half of really what he's referring to, but it's so freaking cute and she is so excited for him and you can just tell that this is like their pride and joy. Like Michael is just the apple of their eye, like he's the one for them. So when he comes home, she's so attentive, but you can tell he's in back pain and then anyways. Yeah. I just had to say that part.
So I get the impression he's basically there for an overnight stay. The next day he's got to go back to work, but he wakes up with a fever.
You guys, I thought he had cancer. I feel bad. I mean, it was bad what happened to him, but like I really thought at the beginning that he had like a tumor in his back. Sorry, that's not relevant. But anyway, that's what I thought.
Back.
Oh my God, when yes, it was horrifying. When Dr. Turner said it was from an ingrown hair, I was like, sir, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Can I just say, when we were talking before, Jen hadn't done the trigger warning. She was like, what trigger warnings do we want to do? And I'm like, the cyst. And she was like...
Well, I said no only because like this is obviously not a visual medium, and if you've watched this episode, you're too late to be warned about it. So sorry to all of our viewers. That was so gruesome.
But his mum calls Dr. Turner out and says, because he's got a fever, he's in bed, he can hardly
move. He's laying on his side, yeah.
Dr. Turner, but basically she goes to touch the sheets or something. He flinches. She goes to call the doctor. Dr. Turner arrives and says, it's pain at the bottom of your spine, I understand. And then Dr. Turner just says, I think I may know what the problem is. How do you know? He
but also
actually have a bad back.
But also, Bex, like this is the thing that was crazy to me about this scene, and like I'm apparently like just ragging on Dr. Turner for the last couple of episodes, including this one. But like he goes down to the mom, and he's like, yeah, this is what it is. It's a cyst. He's gonna go to the hospital. They'll have to put him under anesthesia. Like they'll cut it off or whatever, and then he'll stay there and everything. But literally, he's saying it like as he's backing out the door, and he's like, anyways, tally ho, bye, and like he just shuts, and then he leaves the mom, and like he doesn't say like, do you have any questions? You know, we'll work it all out. Like he just is like, anyway, I'll have to go to the hospital. All right, bye, love.
Like male doctor in the 1960s, Jen.
It was the most nonchalant thing ever, and it was like you're saying something really serious, and he literally looks like he's like dashing to another appointment.
Jen, details and bureaucracy is for little women. He is a man in the 1960s who's a doctor. He's deals with whatever he wants when he wants.
Oh God.
Now, normally an ingrown hair would be right up my street, but this one had gone too far.
What does that even mean? I think I know what it means, but I still don't want.
I just love a bit of Dr. Pimple Popper.
I know, I do love gross things as well. I know you don't like that,
you
Alex.
You absolutely love gross things. Last time I was with you, Jen, we sat and
I said I love gross things, but Alex doesn't. I know Alex doesn't love gross things. I love gross things. Sorry, I didn't mean to be that conversation killer, but
I don't love those things.
This was too far. This was
way too far. No. This was not. No.
So he has the operation, and his mum. The football's on at the moment as well. The World Cup. It's all very exciting because it's 1966, guys. How mad's that?
I know.
And so he's like, his mum's like, oh, the football details, and he's like, how long have you been my mum? You should know by now. I don't follow the footy. So this is like a bit of a. It's like they're trying to lead you to a storyline here. They're like, he's not into football. He doesn't have a girlfriend.
He is acting suspicious because she says after he's had the operation, I can't remember what she says.
I had no idea he was gay until they basically said he was gay.
She said something like he'd be back on his feet soon or something, and he was like, I don't want to talk about my problems. Like he was very, and I was like, well, he basically assumed that the issue that he had was connected with the fact that he was gay. Well, it was the fact that he also had genital warts, so he obviously knew something else was going on.
I don't think he knew he had them.
I think he knew something might be up.
I
and
think
that's
he
why he
knew
thought maybe he
something
had
was
that
a
at the
little
bottom of
bit.
his. Yeah, I think he maybe
But
thought, because he's 17 and young. I think he
I don't
maybe
want to
thought.
Google genital warts, but I think he would know, wouldn't he?
But listen, it's gotta like, look, if you have those, I don't know anything about it, but I'm just gonna say things like I do, right? If you have those, it can't feel or look or be as if everything was completely fine, right? There's
Also,
gotta be
guys,
some
remember
symptom that is
he's
gonna be
17.
bothersome to you.
He's 17 years old.
Yeah, he can't
He's
look
illegally sleeping with people. You don't have Google. He doesn't have photos to reference. This is
Oh,
the
absolutely.
1960s. So he's
Absolutely.
thinking he's got this thing at the base of his spine. There's other stuff going on at the base of his spine that he's been getting paid for.
On the
So
front and
maybe
the back, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't realize it's something as innocent as an ingrowing hair there. He's actually probably panicking, not wanting to show anyone, which is why it got to the state it got.
I've been laughing very inappropriately.
Yeah, but it's true.
It's just nervous laughter. But I know what you mean. Like, but the thing is, like, he clearly he's suffering enough that he's like, okay, I got to get help for this. So he goes to the hospital to like do it, and then
But only because his mum called.
Yeah, he would. I don't think
yeah,
he
trying
would
to hide
sought
it.
help.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gone in himself, but he wasn't like, Mom, no, or I don't know. Anyways, he went forward with the surgery and stuff like that. And then he came home, and I thought Phyllis handled it really, really great because she's like, okay. She was so good because she came and she was like, all right, love, like, I'm just gonna change your dressings. Like, it looks like it's healing really, really nice. I'm gonna be back every single day to like do stuff to it or whatever. And then
Change the dressing.
Yeah,
then she read the discharge papers.
Well, yeah, so she's like, "Did you get a letter like when they let you out to like say what to do next?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's there." She's like, "Okay, let me just have a look at this." So she has a look at it. Perfect poker face, by the way, flawless. Yeah. Didn't lead anything on. She read that information and I was like, "Oh my God, what a professional." So she immediately goes back to Dr. Turner. She's like, "Sad, the lad's got genital warts." Like, yeah, I mean, there's just no way around it. And then Dr. Turner was like, "No." And so then they go and talk. Well, now I'm just telling it. Do you guys want to interject?
Well, you know what annoys me about this? Dr. Turner was like, "There's nothing wrong with being a homosexual," and I thought that's not realistic. I'm sorry. I know he was a bit forward thinking, but it's still illegal in 1966. It's not. It was illegal in 1967, so it's not like it was far away. And he did say that. He did kind of reference that. He had no idea that was going to pass. And also, I just think he would have been more judgy.
Well, I'll say this. To me, there was a line that he said when he went to Michael and he was talking to him in private and he was like, listen, he said, Michael says something about, I can't stop being this way, or like, I've always been this way, or something like that. And he's like, I can't change. And Dr. Turner is like, you couldn't change even if you wanted to. You were born this way. This is how you are. Okay, that's true. We know that now. But I'm like, I don't think that it might be, like, it was way too, now I will say, Dr. Turner has been good to other patients he's had in previous episodes where they've been homosexual.
He's also referenced them to go and get kind of conversion therapy.
But this to me still felt like too much of a leap forward in terms of his acceptance of it. Like, I mean, it was way too, because I mean, let's just be real here. At this time, if homosexuality was even discussed, it was considered to be a mental illness. A mental illness on par with like schizophrenia or bipolar or any of those kind of things. That's what medical professionals thought of this at that time.
Yeah,
that
but that guy
still a long time from now, you know?
What was the character called? And his girl was the Rose Queen.
Martin. His character in EastEnders.
It was
no,
like
he wasn't. He was not.
It
was
like
Fleischman in Coronation Street.
It was
that was it.
It was like Freddie or Lenny or something like that.
Yeah, but anyway, he was literally in Dr. Turner's office, and Dr. Turner was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to have hormone treatment or whatever.
Oh yeah,
you're going to grow."
Do you know what I took away from this? That the base of your spine is called the top of your buttock cleft.
Yeah.
Now we've all.
That's what I call it. That's what I call it. Make sure you watch the top of your buttock cleft.
I don't think I've ever tried to put words to that body part, to be honest.
No, I haven't either. But so anyway, back to Dr. Turner. So he's like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with being homosexual. You know, it's going to be. I'm a future teller. It's going to be totally fine in a year."
But also,
and then the kid's like, "Oh yeah, but you know, it's not." And he's like, "No, honestly, it's absolutely fine." Then he's like, "I do it for money, Dr. Turner." And he's like, "Oh."
Well, and the other thing is, Dr. Turner's like, I can't remember if he specifically said tell your parents, but basically they encouraged him to tell his parents. And I was like, are you really sure that that's a great again, I was like, no. Stop and think about what these people are going to say to this poor
also
boy.
Nurse Crane then talks to him and he's like, I'm not even a boy anymore. And she's like, no, lad, you're not, because you're shagging all over town.
Well, but I also was like, he is kind of a baby. I mean, he's only 17. He's not even like close to 18. He's not like he's 17 in 11 months. He's like 17 in like 3 months. Like, he's a minor. I'm sorry.
But the age of consent.
Well, yeah, but he's a minor.
The age of consent for heterosexuals was 16, but not then.
Also, you would have like 18-year-olds having babies and they wouldn't bat an eyelid. So
yeah,
I know, but
he was of an age where if he'd have brought a girl home who was pregnant, that would, for his mum and dad, they would probably.
Well, that's what they thought he was doing. That's
yeah.
What did you take on Miss Higgins's reaction? Because when she read that he'd been referred to the VD clinic,
that felt a lot more realistic, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like she was accepting of it, but she's just had to have a.
Well, she said she's like, oh no, that's very unsavory. And he's like, I'll thank you to not have an opinion about the letters I ask you to write to Miss Higgins. And then Phyllis is behind her like, you know, like, I mean, to me, like Miss Higgins didn't say anything like, oh, he, you know, anything. She didn't say anything like horrible, but I mean.
Well, can I just say she also did redeem herself towards the end of this.
Yeah.
She did. We'll talk about that. But so anyway, Michael's then going into his parents and he's saying he wants to leave the Parthenon, saying he wants a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
And his mum's like, you've not got a girl pregnant, have you? And I just love the way he was like, of all the things
he's like
I'm trying to get away from, it ain't a pregnant girlfriend, mate.
And he's like, and frankly, it's never gonna be that problem, Mom. Don't ever worry about that.
I do have to say, what? That scene of him coming out to his parents was absolute. It was so well done, by the way. I thought the acting was fantastic.
Yeah,
I thought it was so moving. It was probably the harshest, most horrible coming out scene I've ever seen, because it was just such a hostile environment to be telling it to.
The way that his mom. Oh, sorry, Bex. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to. I mean, this is very frivolous, but the timing of coming out during the World Cup, was it the semi-final?
Yeah, I think so.
I wouldn't talk to my dad about anything while the football's on.
My dad doesn't care about the football. He'd be fine. He'd be like, yeah, all right, let's talk about you being gay.
Anyway,
the scene where his parents were on the couch and he was in the living room with them was like bad enough, but then the scene where he was behind the door and his mom was like beating on the door and just screaming and crying and just saying, you're my boy, but this isn't you, like, you're beautiful, but that's what you say, it is disgusting, like, just all, I mean,
I'm not being funny, that is the worst overreaction I've ever seen in my whole entire bloody life.
I've just written it so over the top. Like,
no, I don't think so. I didn't take it that way at all. I bet you people have gone through that. I think people have encountered everything in terms of like coming out stories. I'm sure there was.
But I'm not saying it's not realistic. I'm saying she's a dickhead.
But over the course of 12 hours, when they wake up the next morning, he's left. I'm like, no wonder he's left. Because that's how you were behaving last night.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't feel welcome in that household.
It was such a split reversal in terms of last night. It was the worst thing in the world.
It was like the next day, suddenly a switch of clarity.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have done that.
And then the next morning, she's like, he's our son, which is obviously how you would want her to react.
Yeah.
But it was just, I mean, you had to fit it into a show. So obviously they had to portray the initial reaction. But it just felt as if very quickly she was completely, even if she'd shown a glimmer of that the night before.
Yeah. And then she's like, I have to do better than I did last night. And I'm like, you're not bloody wrong.
Well, literally anything would have been better than what she did the night before. I mean, absolutely anything. I mean,
so he snuck off and no one knew where he was. They thought he'd gone back to the Parthenon. And obviously, bearing in mind, the parents at this time, they only know he's gay. They don't know he's bloody being paid for sex. Like, they don't even know the worst part of it.
Which, by the way, like, I think the way that they worded it made it seem like that he was agreeing to doing that, but I don't get the sense. To me, there was another comment that Phyllis said something about he's young and like kind of, they're like almost like he's like a what's the phrase? Like a babe to the wolves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's just like
and
even if he didn't want to, what is he going to do to really like not?
And also he's trying to get on ahead at work. They're using that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like what is the phrase about headlights? Flash.
Oh, deer in the headlights.
Deer in the headlights.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, he kind of hinted at that as well, because when he said he didn't want to go back to the hotel, he said there's things about it that.
But even then, I still don't think his parents would have followed that. Do you see what I mean?
You wouldn't take that leap, would you?
But then his note was it sounded so ominous because it was like, remember me as it sounded like he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
Like, I know obviously then there was a bit about trying to change and stuff. So then his mum finds this Lakewood Grange card, and his dad, Godfrey, I love the name Godfrey, was getting onto Nurse Crane, which I love that they actually were like, Nonnatus House. The way he said it as well, I'd like to be put through to Nonnatus House, and I'd like to speak to a lady called, that said the name Poplar, and I'd like to speak to a lady called Nurse Crane. It was so formal and amazing.
It was.
But then Nurse Crane gets Miss Higgins. This is where Miss Higgins redeemed herself to do detective work. She rang up the place and was basically confirmed that it was like a psychiatric clinic specializing in correction therapy, i.e. conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
which, I mean, I feel like, okay, like, just to say, like, I'm sure everyone in 2025 knows this, but, like, basically, this is, like, a quote therapy where the idea is that you can turn people from being homosexual or have a sexuality that you don't like into being a straight person, which, as we all know, is never going to work.
And then Dr. Turner and Nurse Crane loved it.
Yeah.
Turned up, and it was amazing. And Dr. Turner was there threatening a public inquiry. He was like, if you don't let us in now, I'm sure a public inquiry when we found he's dead because he needs treatment. It was amazing. Now, that scene where Michael was the bleakest bloody room and the bleakest, most awful place. He was cold. He was basically naked. He was being sick. It was just absolutely horrendous.
Horrible. He was laying on like a plastic covered mattress in his underwear, doubled in half, like he was lying in a fetal position. He was vomiting into a bucket. Like,
and he just had surgery.
Yeah, they had this look on their face when they walked in as if like the room smelled terrible, which like no duh, I'm sure it did, because I'm sure he was like throwing up, panic sweating like the whole time. You know, they'd given him like lots of like crazy insane drugs, God knows, and just horrifying.
But it's the fact that even now some people still think that like this still happens.
Yeah, there's conversion therapy camps and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the same as it was, but
the point is, I'm not criticizing America at all, but I do know there's more there. There's more people there, but I know there's a big thing, like quite a movement in the Christianity movement about conversion therapy in America.
Yeah,
a lot of people over here go over there to do it because it's like quite a big thing.
Yeah.
I've seen it on TikTok because that's where I get all my correct information from.
Yeah, so anyway, we do have some really radical conservatives over here, so.
Yeah. So anyway, well, we do over here. So he goes home. It's great. He's obviously still really upset and still healing and all that. But I will say his parents. His parents. So his dad says to him, "If you stay the way you are."
Can I just rewind the line that Phyllis says, which I think is the perfect line? He says something about like, "What about my parents?" And she says, "Well, they want you to come home if that's what you want to do, or like they're here for you if that's what you want."
Yeah.
Which I really liked because she put the control back in his hands, and it wasn't like, "Oh, we think you should go back to your parents." You know, I just like that she allowed him to make that decision. She phrased it that way.
And it is right. He's not 18 yet, but he is over 60. Like, it's just he is in like this weird kind of no man's land of, is he a teenager? Is he an adult? Like, it is a weird
not to go off on a tangent, but just to say that among young people who are in this situation, or, you know, who are either, you know, LGBTQ, you know, IA plus, all those things, or if they're trans, or, you know, well, trans is covered in that. But anyway, they do have very, very high rates of, you know, homelessness, trauma, you know, like being really left out because their families don't support them.
And suicide.
It's a big problem. Yes. So, I mean, his story was very real, even though it's set in the 60s, of like just the damage that can happen to a young person because of this phobia. Yeah.
Well, when I'm surprised they could move on from it and get over that. Like the fact that his parents acted like that, he actually was able to forgive them for that. But anyway, let's just go and talk about his dad, because this absolutely, I can't tell you how much this speech that his dad did. I was crying my eyes out. The way he was like, if you stay the way you are, you will never be a father. And he's like, I know that, Dad. And he thought he was attacking him at first. And he was like, but no, he was trying to explain how much he loved him and how proud he was of him. And like, oh my God, it absolutely killed me, because it's just so true. How, like, obviously you've got nephews, you've got nephew, niece, I've got my daughter. The love you have for this child, like, it's basically saying how special it is watching someone grow up. Yeah. And like, I don't have nephews or nieces, but I do have cousins with kids, and I love them so much. And I just think to watch these kids and be so proud of these kids, just anything they do. Like, I know my cousin sent me a picture of my son on the potty, and we were all like, yay, do you know what I mean? Like, just
I think I'm nodding. I know Bex feels the same. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here.
And I think as well, like you just want everything for them. And especially at that time, like he wouldn't have been able to live as he should have been able to, like a full life with somebody.
They didn't know the next year it was going to be legal.
But even the following year, I mean, I know nothing about this, but even if it's legalized, there would still have been so much stigma.
And it still wasn't legal for him because it wasn't the age of 18. It was like 21 at that point, I think, or 25. Like it was so, like, the point being, it wasn't still, and it was still stigmatized. It wasn't like, and
at that time, having children would just be closed off to him.
Yeah, and I did like the way she was like, whatever you get up to behind closed doors is not my business and never will be, but your happiness is my business. And I was just like, oh, because then Michael was getting overwhelmed with just relief, I think, that his parents were kind of accepting him, and he just got upset. And I was like, oh, Michael.
To be fair, I mean, I was very critical of the mother's reaction.
Me too.
To then be so quickly turned around, but I think they just had to do that because of the length of the episode.
Yeah, to be fair. And busy episode as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot. Very busy. I mean, they could have spent the whole episode with this family. I mean, they gave the pigeon guy more time on the air than they did they did this young man. But let's just say this, though it ended in kind of like this very sweet Call the Midwife way, which every once in a while I'm like, okay, there's no way that it would have worked out this way. I am grateful that it was ultimately a happy story, and I think we all just really hope Michael's okay.
Yeah.
So anyways.
So the Nonnatans have obviously taken up what are they? The pupil midwife.
Pupil midwives. Yeah.
I just love the bit parts the other pupil midwives had. They had Nancy Corrigan and then all the other bit parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously the opening scene, Trixie's bringing the hospital training records. There's a bit of a power struggle dynamic going on between Sheila and Philip, which I loved
that.
Sheila's got to get back on her bicycle, which was just when she was trying to get on a bike and Fred was like, I'm gonna have to put blocks on the pedals. Hilarious. But we meet Nancy, who I never remembered was called Anne.
I did, but only because my mum was. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just something that sticks.
But do we get the thing that her real name is Anne and she just tells people to call her Nancy?
Yeah, right. That's what I thought as well.
Okay, because the way she said it, she's like, oh, but everyone calls me Nancy, like Nancy Sinatra. I'm like, this is giving fake name. Like, this is like, you don't like the name Anne, so you're just like, no, I want to be called Nancy. I think it's just giving that
she wants to reinvent herself.
Well, let's
she's been living with the nuns.
Because we might be watching our wedding soon.
What?
Her name's Anne.
But if she gets married, what will they exchange vows in? We're watching series 14.
We should leave this out because we don't want to spoil it for loads of people.
Also, I'm totally, apparently I'm dumb.
Don't worry.
Can I just say for Jen's benefit, Nancy got engaged at the Christmas special.
Oh, yeah, no, I watched the Christmas special. I know that.
So she's going to get married. So we
all
can
Americans have seen it, so we can keep it in then.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like, oh, when she gets married, she's going to be called something. And I'm like, I don't know.
No, they say your full name in the vows, don't they?
She'll have to exchange her vows.
Okay.
No, I think her name genuinely is Anne. She just wants to be called Nancy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So the nuns drop her off, and they're obviously, if I'm honest, they're all like, oh, they're obviously really fond of her. I didn't get that impression. I got the impression that they wanted to check she was staying there and would never come back.
Yeah.
I think they're a bit like, get rid of her.
And they said, let's just hand her over. Can I just say as well, the nuns' outfits, they're...
Cardigans? Habits?
Well, the cardigans, the skirts, that was my school uniform in primary school.
A grey cardigan?
It was grey.
And a very long skirt.
I had a skirt. My niece would be horrified by the length of my skirt. It came to mid-calf.
In primary school?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know why. I had a really long skirt. I'll find a photo of myself.
But isn't that the whole thing that like the uniform is trying to make you be conservative, but then all the girls like roll the skirt up so that it's like not as long.
But Jen, you don't need to wear midi length skirts.
I don't know why I had a skirt that long. I will find a photo and you will see it. All I would need was the head dress,
the wimple,
and you would have thought, there's.
I did like the way when they were like, oh, we got rid of our traditional garb. We feel rather with it, and
we're with it. Yeah, I know.
We did try it, and Sister Julianne was like, yes, we did, but it was considered unnecessary, and everyone went awkward. But right, did you see Nancy, whatever the hell she's called? She's got her own bloody massive room.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the other nuns. Sorry, the midwives just sharing all squashed in together. Two in a room.
What gets me is eventually she's going to be squashed in a room sharing in any case.
I know. Doesn't make sense.
Why aren't two people sharing that massive room?
That's my point exactly.
I don't know. Girls, I'm going to be honest.
You could get 3 people in that room comfortably.
Yeah.
I struggle with Nancy at times. Nancy's not my favorite.
Well,
I like Nancy.
So
She's
did
grown
Mrs.
on
Greenie.
me. Yeah, really. I would have been like Mrs. Greenie. Like when the scene where so Nancy and Trixie go to their first like home visit together.
Yeah.
And Trixie stood in the back, like by the doorway, and Mrs. Greenie is being examined by Nancy, and Nancy's doing like the this and the that and da 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 da. And she's just talking. And the way Trixie was like, ooh, ooh, ah, like I've had that experience lately because I've taken on a bit of like listen leadership at work, and like sometimes when you hear what people say or see what they do, you're just like, oh, ooh, oh. And like sometimes that you really do need to talk to them about it, and then sometimes you're like, oh, it's just a style thing. But like I was with Trixie on that.
Yeah. I've listened to apprentices at work. In my job we deal with a lot of pensioners, and I've heard one of our apprentices say "my bad" to somebody.
Someone who's like 80 years old and is like,
yeah, and I'm just like, oh my God.
What? I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
I do get what you're saying, because obviously I've had that exact experience, but I thought Nancy was doing really well.
No.
I thought she needed to work on a bedside manner, but she was quite glib, wasn't she? Like, oh, you just do that, you just do that. Just acted like she knew everything without actually really listening.
I saw a bit of myself in her.
No, you didn't. You're not at all like that.
You've not been like Nancy a day in your life, Bex.
No.
But she put her foot in it a few times.
But you wouldn't have done it like that. No. Okay. Absolutely not.
Well, that's reassuring to know.
I mean, she just walked in and she was like, oh, well, like, what about this? What about that? And she's like, oh, you're fine. Oh, no, well, and
she was just very cavalier. I think that's
Trixie was like, she's like, you need to listen more, like it's not that you're like did such a bad job, but you just don't listen.
Yeah. And that's and then when they're having the sit down lesson with Sister Julia, again, I just thought everyone was very harsh with Nancy.
No, because Sister Julienne said another trainee midwife name, and she spoke it. That's rude.
Yeah, she shouldn't have done that. But there was nothing wrong with what I just thought Sister Julia,
because she was like, this is exactly what it is.
I know,
and then she was like, well, actually, no, because there's different ways of judging it. So she was wrong.
Well,
why are you identifying with? You're not at all like her.
Where is this Nancy apologist coming from?
Well, do you know what got me though? So they were talking about, she's like, I only ever seem to learn from my mistakes. I never seem to learn from learning or listening, because I never bloody do.
Yeah.
But then I thought maybe we were heading in like an ADHD direction.
Because she was not in the 1960s.
Well, yeah, but we're watching it in like 2025 or whatever year it was it came out. I just thought
they always
maybe that's
have
what they were
doctors
doing.
Like, there's a brand new diagnosis, and then it's like,
But I genuinely did, because she was just so like not listening at all, and I thought, oh, maybe it is, because I thought nobody really is like that. I thought they were really hamming it up for that, and then literally no mention of it ever again now. Like, she had one awkward episode. She's done a birth, and now everything's great.
But like, this is not a spoiler, but like Nancy is always somebody who kind of just runs headlong into everything, and like that's something she's like, it's kind of a feature of her personality. Like, she always wants to like do things before she's really thought them through, and like sometimes that's great, but also sometimes that gets her into trouble, as we all will see, and everything like that. And this she's like starting from the word go, like with that personality type.
My favorite moment, and I don't want to skip ahead to Trixie's storyline, but it's Nancy's comment, is when Trixie's obviously been invited to the christening of baby Jonathan, because Matthew's rung up and invited her. Did he invite her this episode? Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
So they're at Violet's because Trixie's buying a christening present. Nancy's there, and it was when Nancy referred to the fact that Trixie was at his wife's deathbed, and she referred to Trixie attending the christening as being the skeleton at the feast.
Oh God, that was cut out of my episode. I didn't see that. That's crazy.
And everybody was just like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, that's the thing. She like, before she doesn't think first. She just does something, and like that's the problem.
Yeah. So should we, before we carry on talking about Nancy, introduce Beryl Greenie, because we've touched on her we've touched on her at the start when Jenn talked about worst husband of the series award
ever of series 10.
We've talked a bit about Nancy's bedside manner, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Beryl Greenie is basically, so this is her second child. She's basically got a toddler, because she's there laughing and giggling while they're visiting her mum.
Yeah.
And did she have preeclampsia? She was in St Cuthbert's for 7 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah. She had a really bad time last time.
So she's been really anxious about the birth.
Yeah, rightly so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But what she doesn't need is that Irish girl.
Yeah, well, basically, she had an awkward, which we've spoken about before, because Trixie was stood behind. That was Beryl Greeny's, appointment.
Yeah.
And she then said that she didn't want to deal with the Nonnatus House. She was going to go to St Cuthbert's direct because she did not want to deal with the Irish girl. And that's a pretty damning.
Yeah, but I also felt that Sheila was very harsh with Nancy. Just Nancy apologist over here, because she was she was like, well, so it's day one of having pupil midwives and we've lost one person to the hospital.
Yeah, but again, Nancy was so cavalier, Bex. She was literally just talking over her, not listening to her. Oh, you'll be grand. Don't worry about that. You just told me something that you're genuinely worried about. I'm not taking it seriously, and I'm just telling you that it'll be fine, and not knowing myself. Like, do you know what I mean? Because she didn't read the notes as well.
I know, but still.
Here's the thing. Okay, and I'm just gonna say this comes from like my experience, my professional experience. I'm with you, and I think Nancy annoyed me, and I even said that she kind of annoyed me earlier, and I think she didn't do a great job with that visit. But I think there's something to be said for the work that all of us have to do in these type of fields to say, like, here's the thing. Okay, I'm gonna make this more succinct. Sister Frances had an experience like this just a couple of weeks ago with the lady that had the baby, the
dirty
mother.
Tart.
Yeah, the dirty tart. And she said, she's like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Like, get me a supervisor, get me a manager, get me a higher up nurse, right? And Frances was like, okay, hold on. And she turned away, and then she looked at Phyllis as she was walking. She's like, you know what? Hold up. And Sister Frances went back in and she said, listen, I get that we didn't have a great start to this. Let's reset. I can do better. Just give me another chance. Like, we all deserve like an opportunity, like we can work this out. That to me would have been I like that model better. To me, Sheila could have gone to Nancy and I do get the reprimand, and I think Nancy earned the reprimand, but she could have also said to Nancy, like, listen, this is an opportunity for us to like learn. Okay. And even though you did this and you stepped out and you said stuff that I really don't think you should have said and everything, understanding Mrs. Greeny's opinion and feeling about wanting to go to the hospital, let's see if we can go back to her and say to her, this, and this, and then help her to understand the value of a home birth and da-da-da-da-da. This can be a learning experience rather than just, oh, well, she criticized you, she said you sucked, and then she's going to go to the hospital and now we've lost a patient and that's on you. You know what I mean? So I think that there's something to be said for not always just defaulting to whatever the client or the patient or whatever just says and then just going along with them and agreeing them. I think sometimes you have to kind of push back a little bit.
I'm not saying they were right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but also Beryl Greeny was so nervous, and I think she just absolutely just did not care one bit about Beryl Greeny in that scenario.
Well, basically, Nancy, when they were leaving the visit, Trixie said, like, listen, you didn't really listen, like, you have to work on your bedside manner. And she said, oh, you know what? I'm really sorry. She's like, I'm just used to the hospital where everything is like, go, go, go. She's like, I feel like I'm stuck on one speed. And I do think that there's an accounting for the fact that, like, I don't think it's that she didn't care about Miss Greeny. I think she just was... I don't think she was taking her as a specific individual into account enough, and that was her failing. And I do think she has care for this work. I think she does.
And also, to be fair to Mrs. Greeny as well, like, if she goes into the hospital, it will be more like that. So actually, she chose the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think Nancy at the hospital, they don't want to understand why someone's feeling anxious. They just want to get on with it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, look, what if Mrs. Greeny had gotten one of those horrible consultants that we like railed on about last week?
Yeah.
She would have run out of there with her hair on fire.
As we could have predicted, she goes into labour during half-time of the World Cup.
Oh.
And her husband just lets her leave the house to get a taxi.
Well, he was like, there's only 12 minutes left, is what he said.
But she says to him like 3 different times, she's like, babe, I had a contraction. Babe, I think I need to, go to the hospital.
He would not be my husband by the end of that match.
My God.
Mate, we're getting divorced.
Prepare the divorce papers while I push this baby out.
Walking out with a big bag and a massive tummy, going out to get a cab. Nah, mate, you can jog on, mate. We're not staying married after this.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
I did
not.
love. So she knocks desperately on the door of Nonnatus House, right? And I thought it was going to be one of those situations where no one heard her because they were watching the football. And then I realised they were all in the community hall.
Yeah.
And it's Nancy listening, and she was like, she started to ring loads, and Nancy was like, oh, the bell. I was like, Nancy, come on. But I genuinely thought, because it was Nancy, I thought she was going to mess it up and not be there and stuff. But anyway, she did actually eventually hear the door. But Mrs. Greeny's face when it was Nancy who opened the door, I'd swear. I'd be like, oh my.
Well, she said, she's like, oh no, it's you. And she's like, no offense. And Nancy's like, no, it's fine. I get it. I really don't mind.
Do you not think, though, one of the nuns should have stayed back?
Well, one did, though, Bex.
Not Sister Monica Joan.
No one needs that.
She's not any help. She's having a crisis of faith. No, but they should have left an actual working nun there.
Not a pupil midwife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were all at the community center though. Like I mean, there's a phone there. If Nancy had needed help, she could have called.
Did she have time to do that though, Jen? No, she didn't.
Well, she didn't, but she made it work. I mean, if she had, like, the thing is, yes, I mean, if she had needed help, I think she could have called for help. But the fact of the matter is that she followed the guidance she got, actually. Like, she really rose above.
Yeah. Well, I do like the fact that she unceremoniously threw Mojo out of a room. Love that. I don't think any other pupil midwives would do that. They'd be too nervous.
Oh, I thought it was a great moment. And you know what? I really appreciate it because I just feel like sometimes, like Sister Julian, like earlier in the episode, Sister Monica Jones laying in her bed like a sad sack. And she's like, listen, sister, if you would only tell me what it is, like I can try to help you. And she's like, everyone's like tutting over her. Like she's this princess, like, oh, I'm so sorry. What can we do? And she's just like moaning on about everything. And then Nancy walks in and she's like, get your butt out of bed, go sit in a chair if you want to sit down, like there's a lady here. And then
actually I really appreciate that for Mojo as well, because she did feel useful.
Truly, the thing that I thought after the baby was born and Sister Monica Joan had like helped, and then she was looking at the placenta, which it was so gross, but whatever, I was like, you know what, the thing that Sister Monica Joan was needed to have her head pulled out of her butt. That's what she needed, because she was up her own butt.
Was, just really quick, can we just go really quick on the Mojo thing, just a second?
Yes.
She was going on about how, witnessed, a new life. And I thought, you've witnessed ridiculous amounts of new life. Like, it's just annoying me that one, like, years later has made it to have your faith back. Shut up.
To me, it was a completely, I know that the show it's not fake on the show, but to me, it was a completely contrived storyline. I'm sorry. I thought it was so stupid. I'm like, of all the people that is, and you know what I thought about when I was watching this? When Sister Monica Joan was again, like complaining or self-pitying or whatever earlier in the episode, she's the one that constantly is railing on, like, remember when she went up to Scotland to look at St. Michael and the horns? Remember when she like did something with the nativity that she wasn't supposed to do?
Yeah.
She's constantly talking about, oh, the heavens and the angels, and the thing when she's at the hospital, she's like, to Sir Thomas Aquinas, my constant acquaintance, like my true love Homer, like like the Lord, she is the most of any also, of them, guys, with all of that. I'm like, where did that all go? Nowhere.
Placenta beautiful I've seen one in real life. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
I mean, I don't know if that was a real one or a fake one, but that looked disgusting.
Anyway. Sorry, shall we get back to Mrs. Greenie?
Well, hey, I just need Alex is not going to be one of those people. People get their placentas now and they do
calculate them.
No, they do like a print of it on a piece of paper.
Do they?
Yeah. So
That's
it's
horrible.
like, like when you rub bark on a tree and you get the pattern.
God. Or gravestone.
Yeah.
But
they just take the placenta and they put it on a piece of paper, and then obviously there's no ink. That's the blood of the placenta is the ink.
That's a biohazard.
And then they have that framed on their walls.
That's a biohazard. That's unsanitary.
I'm all for like Earth Mothers. I think it's lovely, but that's not me. Anyway, so she has this baby.
I would have it turned into, when they turn it into capsules. I would do that.
No,
I wouldn't fry it up like.
I'm sorry.
Can we stop talking about placentas? I'm going to say. Anyway, the baby's born, and her husband must be wondering where the bloody hell she is by now. Surely.
No, he's not. He's down the pub. He's celebrating with his mates. He doesn't care about her. Yeah,
because he's only just come looking for her.
And by the way, it doesn't even matter if he turns up. He's out the door anyway. She's not staying married to that guy.
He's turned up and wants to call the baby after Jeff Hurst.
Oh, that really pissed me off. You did nothing. You ignored your wife, and then you want to choose the baby's name? No, she should name it something else just to spite him. Absolutely
Divorce. Not. That's what she should name the bloody baby. Divorce.
Yeah, I would just be like, no, you're not naming this kid anything. I'm naming it myself. Like, you're lucky to even be still around here. Ugh, yeah. He sucked. I hated him.
World Cup. Tell you what I was loving about the World Cup. The red, white, and blue everywhere. Like now it's just the England flag.
Even just outfits. It was a lot of.
Fred's vest was so good.
Oh, I loved how excited him and Reggie were. I was loving Fred and Reggie outside the shop and stuff. All those kind of shots of them two just being silly, and I absolutely loved those shots.
I know.
But
I will Fred bet against England though. That's terrible.
Not so much the bunting nowadays, but whenever it is a World Cup, people do hang flags out of windows.
Yeah, but again, it's just the England flag, and these days it was the Union Jack.
Yeah, that is true. But like people will have flags on their car, flags hanging out, flag bunting. Like we still do that. At my old job, we used if it was like the World Cup or the Euros, each team would have like a country, and we would all decorate our desks like in the theme of the country.
So we don't do any of the decorating at work, but we always do the sweepstakes. It's always me doing it. Yeah, and also the fact that Lucille was questioning if it was gambling from a nun. Like, a nun's doing it, mate. You're all right. You don't need to worry. So
well, also,
Fred,
I actually wrote this down because aren't they talking about this? And Sister Hilda was like, "No, it's fun, Lucille. Have you ever heard of that? Fun, fun." You know what I mean? I was just like, "Yeah," because Lucille, like, even she's just too much of a killjoy at times, and it's like, can you lighten up? Ugh.
but it's also Sister Francis painting all the little flags. I'm like, oh, I just cut them out. I just buy the mirror and cut them out of there when I do it for work. But now Fred had his little mate who came in, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who I recognised from right, you won't watch this, Jen. I don't think it was available. But he was the Curious Orange, right? He dressed up as an orange in a thing called This Morning with Richard Not Judy. It was Lee and Herring. Do you remember?
I know, I didn't know.
Oh,
I know Richard and Judy.
No, This Morning with Richard Not Judy. It was a comedy show.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that.
I loved it. It was him. And I was like, so pleased with myself. I just want one person to actually be like, yes, I wondered where I knew him from. And that was that.
Maybe one of our listeners will.
But also Trixie in Argentina colours, love that. And I always do themed teas and cocktails and stuff whenever it's the World Cup and things like that.
Wow.
So we always do that. That reminded me of Nick. But also Fred really reminded me of my husband. So whenever there's like a World Cup or something on, my husband always bets against the team that he doesn't want to win, so he'll win no matter what.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
Well, Fred didn't want them to win though, did he? That was his.
Well, he would have won £1,000 if Germany won.
Yeah.
Which in today's money, I looked it up.
He wasn't placing that bet to guarantee you an England win.
No, of course he wasn't. He wanted £1,000, which in today's money, I looked up, is £23,806.
Oh my God.
So no wonder he was looking like he'd lost something.
Yeah, really. He really had.
Do you know how much 25 guineas is nowadays?
No.
No, I don't either.
No, I thought you'd looked it up.
I tried. It's not that straightforward to look up.
Really? Well, could you do a conversion of like 25 guineas to how many pounds?
I tried it, Jen.
A guinea is £1.5 in modern currency.
But then that can't be right because he didn't win 25 quid and go out and buy a radiogram and then trade it in for an engagement ring.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It just says it's £1.5 in today's money.
But £1, wait, £1 50p?
£1 5p.
No, guinea is not what. There's no way a guinea is £1.5.
I've no idea.
Well, but you just said you don't know, Bex.
It's not that. I know.
You said the conversion. No, but anyways. Well, the point is that
if it's £25 in today's money, no one's excited about that.
Well, it says a guinea was worth £1, 1 shilling, £1 and 1 shilling in 1971. So this is 1966.
Okay, so how much is £1, 1 shilling now?
Now, let me Google that.
2000. No, it wasn't at all 2000. £100 was worth 2,380. So divide that by 4, 2,300. If you're looking at about 500, 600 quid.
Okay, that's definitely reasonable for the radiogram and for an engagement ring. Or radiograph, something like that?
Gram.
Yeah. Gram.
My grandparents had the very same one.
Oh, really? I love the whole like different speeds thing and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, like I never even thought about like.
Well, yeah, because if different records,
that being a thing.
Yeah. I used to do it on my dad's ones when we were growing up. I bet you missed that.
Before we move off the football, I just need to comment about Violet watching it with the binoculars from the back of the hall.
That would be me. I need my reading glasses for everything now. Oh, my eyes.
I don't yet.
Oh, I have to go to the ophthalmologist, you guys.
Just to close off on Beryl's storyline, I did love the way when she gave birth and Violet was like, look what you've done. No, Violet didn't say it. Nancy said it. Nancy said, look what you've done. And she was like, no, look what you've done.
That was sweet.
They had a circle moment.
And let's just give
I'm sorry for reporting you to your bosses.
I'm sorry that I caused you to be part of a disciplinary.
And Nancy's like, you know what? It's okay. It was going to happen one way or the other. I do like that Nancy had the compound presentation and then Sister Monica Joan like helped her figure it out. And then it was just a really sweet scene all the way around.
So Sister Monica Joan has found her faith again. I think
thank goodness. I'm so tired of that whole storyline. Just get back to living, lady.
At the very start of this episode, the way Cyril looked at Lucille in church.
Oh
my God.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we've mentioned the 25 guineas, but Cyril's passed his next civil engineering exam and did so well that he won a prize of 25 guineas. Mm-hmm. He's also been offered a partnership in a garage because his boss is moving to a bigger garage.
Yeah.
He's bought the radiogram. He's returned the radiogram.
Yeah.
He's bought an engagement ring. In the last episode, I said, do you think Violet thought that he might be going to propose? And everyone was like, no, I don't think Violet thought that. He's literally
I agree. Thank you. If you listen back.
Also, Bex, you watched that episode before you watched episode 3, so you already knew that was going to happen. So, like,
I did not know that it was going to happen, Jen, because I'd forgotten.
Did.
I didn't.
You didn't forget that much. I
did.
can guarantee you, if you hadn't watched it, you wouldn't have said a darn thing about engagement. You would have been like, wait, what? And then you would have gone
dare
with
you,
it.
Jen? I had it on in the background.
No.
I didn't pay that much attention to it. I didn't realize he'd proposed at the end of the episode. And I was going to give you credit because at the end of the episode, last episode, you were making the point that Lucille was overlooking the fact that if they hadn't come to England, they wouldn't have met each other.
Yes.
And she says in this, if we'd never have met if we'd both stayed on our islands.
Yes, that's right.
And I was like, Jen was exactly making that point. I would have made that point, but I take it back.
No, you still made it, so I'm taking credit for it.
You know what I liked? I thought they were going to have this big argument scene when I watched this because he was like, she wasn't arsey about it though, but she was a bit like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to get a radiogram.
She was a little bit.
Yeah, but she wasn't like, yeah, but she wasn't carrying it on, Jen. She came around again with a record. She was actually being nice.
Yes.
And then she was like, we can play it. And then he was like, well, actually, I've got rid of it because I've got you this.
Her reason for not wanting it, just because they were going to have to move that glass fish off the top of it every time they opened it.
I mean, valid. Oh, but the ring, the way he got down on his knees, and then she was crying, and he was like, this is where I place my heart. I was just like, OMG, I love to see it.
Oh my gosh, girls.
Would love to see all of Phyllis's photos.
Same.
Photos of the pupil midwives at the start, photos from Lucille's engagement.
That's an idea for a book. Yes, Nurse Crane's photo album.
Yeah.
That would be a great tie-in book for the show. That would be a really good book.
If they
credit to ReCall The Midwife.
Credit.
Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely.
Should we mention Timothy? Timothy's finished his A-levels.
Yes.
He's back home. He's applied to medical school.
Yeah.
Dr. Turner makes the comment he'll never really live at home again. So
they're reminiscing, aren't they, outside, like really being like, and he's a bit of a downer. And then he's like, yeah, I'll be thinking of him. You know, saying all these things you think would be nice, like, oh, he'll be living outside a home for the first time. He'll be studying halls. Oh, he'll be dissecting his first corpse. That was literally what he said. I'm like, is that something you reminisce about?
He's like, those were the days. Those were the days.
Weird. I liked all the modern music this episode as well. Also, Matthew Aylward has not opened the letter.
Yeah, we haven't talked about.
I felt for him. He really got me. But can I just say something really weird? I think there's something going on this season where everything is really chaste, and I don't get it because I know I'm always the one who's like, Cyril, but like the thing is, like, they never kiss on this show ever, and there's like a whole thing about it, and it's I don't even think Cyril and Lucille have like barely even hugged ever since they've been a couple
on this show. Do you not remember when Tom got the Brill cream stain on the wall?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's an earlier era. It's like somebody came in and is like directing the show, or there's
Do you think they were like, this is just too racy?
Well, that, like, honestly, I wonder.
Yeah, but Lucille, that is in Lucille's character. I feel like she's probably like closed mouth. Have you ever seen Wedding Singer when they're like church tongue?
Yes, I have. But like literally, like Lucille and Cyril don't even. The closest we got to that was a week or two ago.
They were dancing close to each other.
When they started dancing, and then they had this like tension, and they were like getting really, really close, and it was like they were gonna kiss, and then the door opened, and the church ladies came in, and it was like, I don't think they've held hands basically, like, and I'm not trying to.
I mean, like, Jen, that's normal before marriage, isn't it?
I just am like, it's just weird, and like when they get married, I specifically remember, and I remember thinking it like so vividly at the time, that there's this thing that they do when they're married, and they literally go in for a kiss, and the whole screen goes white as if they're both dying and like ascending into heaven and becoming angels or something. It's the strangest thing. And when we get there, I definitely want to talk about it. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, you just have.
I'm gonna talk about it more. But anyways, yeah.
Baby Jonathan's cuteness, though.
I like the way his dad calls him a splendid fellow. He's a splendid fellow. He really is.
Oh, I know. It was very sweet.
Trixie, I like the way Trixie offered him books on baby management as if it's some sort of formal.
You know what? But then didn't bloody send him. So she goes in, disrupts the routine of Jonathan says, oh, you need to decide. Really annoying the nanny, right? Even though the nanny's obviously trying to get some routine in. She's been doing it for years, right? Then she's like, oh, I'll send you books. Never does. Buggers off. And then, I know what they were trying to convey, that it's his decision and stuff, but you're a bit like, well, Trixie, you haven't actually helped there. You just caused chaos.
She does send the books later on.
Oh, no, he has to remind her again.
Oh. But you know what, though? I actually kind of felt like maybe... I don't know. Something about the nanny thing really put me off. I felt like
is it the hand that rocks the cradle?
It was like she was making the baby cry it out all the time. I don't know. I just it didn't sit right with me. It made me feel bad for baby Matthew that he was just left in a crib all alone to just cry. And I just
she was old school. And bearing in mind
that's why he's got the
that would have been like
has.
Yeah, true. And he's a great fellow.
Yeah, I just thought
a splendid fellow.
Give him hugs. You know what I mean? He's a brand new baby.
Yeah, no, I know what they were trying to convey, but I was a bit like Trixie just went in a bit like Nancy there.
Yeah, she did. Not in a good way.
Aww.
Also, the scene I really liked was when Cyril tries to speak to Lucille really quick when he goes to the clinic, and there's a little kid who just walks in with a load of pee. And it's like, here you go. My mum says that. Nowadays, they'd be like, excuse me, is any parent near you? Where have you come in with a parent? There's just kids walking around the place, and everyone's like, all right, it.
Yeah. Ugh, when they tried to tell what type of jam there was in the jar with the urine in it, I was like, you guys are gross. You guys are.
You know what? I don't miss that about being pregnant. Having to take wee in wherever you are. Every time you go in, you have to take pee in, and
you have to bring pee in with you.
Yeah, every time.
Oh.
Still goes on to this day.
Oh my gosh. So you'd have to wash a jam jar Call the Midwife style?
No, they have the plastic things.
We're not still doing jam jars in the United Kingdom.
I don't know. You guys have a lot of old-fashioned customs that you hung on to.
I won't be able to eat that much jam. For how much they bloody made me use. No, I used to pee in a cup, Jen, and then pour it in.
It's very similar to they do in the US. It's miraculous the technology we've got now.
I know. You guys, wow. Wonders never cease.
Yeah. Should we do heroes and zeros?
Yes.
I just feel like Matthew's doing so, I forgot how strong he came into the show, and rewatching this, I just really like his character. I know I said it already, but I loved Fiona, but I just feel like he just
I still don't think they weren't matched.
He's a bit posh for me.
Him and Fiona weren't matched?
I didn't see them as a couple.
Well, the good news is they're not anymore. So.
No, they're not.
Well, my thing with them is I thought she was probably about 3 inches taller than him, and they just never had them stand together, and so that's why she laid in the bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She that's just had okay this as well, guys.
I didn't think it was a reason they're badly matched, but I just thought it was funny that whenever they were together, either he was standing and she was sitting, or he was standing one side and she something. It was just funny to me. I thought they were.
I just would never have put them as a couple together. If I had to play, what's that game?
Tic-tac-toe?
No, where you flick the things down, the pictures.
Oh,
Guess Who?
Guess Who, yeah.
If I'd play Guess Who, I would not have paired those two. That's not how you play that game.
I was about to say, that's not at all how you play that game.
That's not what that game is about.
Right, should we do heroes and zeros?
Yes, let's.
Sure.
Who's going first?
My hero is Nancy.
Bex does go first all the time. That's our routine.
Because she soldiered on despite everybody's criticism of her.
Can I just say something really quick? Years ago, I'm not going to mention any names, but we had a big argument. I wasn't in this argument, but Becky had a friend argument. People had been drinking a bit much, and Becky and our other friend had a really big argument about Colleen Rooney on a train. Do you remember, Bex? And you were literally really dramatic, I'd die for it. This is what I feel a bit like you've gone to
I've similarly defended Katie Price to the
Price
hill
as well. Yeah.
You're just taking such a strong stance on this for no reason.
Suddenly, Nancy's your ride or die for no apparent reason, but you're
I
sticking
feel like if we had started the Nancy conversation and you would have been like, oh, Nancy, and then we were like, yeah, anyways, then you would have been not even, but somehow because we said something, you're just okay, I'm going.
I'll defend it to her.
She's had a really difficult start in life. She's doing so well,
but we don't know anything about that.
She's come from an orphanage, Jen.
We do know that, Jen.
We do know that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So
She
Nancy
was fine. The nuns were fine.
Nancy's my hero. My zero is Michael's mum's reaction.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a really good one.
I mean, his dad's reaction wasn't great, but it also wasn't, it was just so extreme and over the top, like pounding on the door, sobbing, screaming. What did she expect? He was obviously, yeah.
Okay, my zero, I'm not going to go with the obvious one because I think Jen probably wants to go with that one.
Yeah.
I
appreciate this.
What's the obvious one? I can't wait to hear. Carry on.
You can hear. Well, yeah, this is a podcast. You can wait. Woo.
You can't wait to listen.
My zero is going to be the Parthenon for making Pantheon. What's it called? Pantheon. Parthenon.
Pantheon, I think.
Anyway, the hotel.
The hotel.
Basically making the bellboy a sex worker.
Yes.
That's your zero. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
getting him STDs. Yeah. Awful. And also the
Which,
clinic.
by the way, can I just say, you know that whoever propositioned him for sex was some disgusting old man pervert. Like, you just know that probably pretended he was straight or whatever and, like, had a wife and everything like that. And he was just doing this to this boy on the side. Some creepo. Like, I
think it's quite a lot of creepos, Jen. That's the point.
Yes, there are a lot of creepos. Yes.
So, yeah, but also the clinic as well, because that was so bleak. So bleak.
Oh yeah. Is that the obvious zero?
Dual zero. No, that's not the obvious zero.
Oh, but it is a zero. Carry on.
It is.
And my hero is Cyril for the beautiful, beautiful proposal to Lucille.
Oh my gosh,
it was gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean,
she wishes
Cyril proposing to somebody else is never going to be Jen's.
It was just a practice for when he proposed.
I don't know if he's married in real life, Jen, so that hope's still there.
I want Cyril. I don't want a real person. I want this imaginary
Oh, right, that's
man.
all right then.
Yeah. That's the problem I've come to realize is that I end up fixating on these fictional men, and real men don't often stand up to that standard, which is a problem. That's a me problem. That's something I'm working on. I'm not going to go into further. This is not a me therapy podcast. This is like a whatever. But no, I did love Cyril's proposal.
This is a Nancy fan podcast.
Yes, this is a Nancy apologist podcast. No, like, and just to piggyback, when he was like, oh, he's like, ever since the moment I saw you, and he talked about like his future was with her, and he wanted to like build his life with her. Oh, and then he said he's like, I used to think about the past, but as soon as I saw you, I just started living in the now. I mean, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and he just is the sweetest.
It was amazing.
It was. Okay. My zero is Mrs. Greeny's horrible, horrible husband.
Yes.
Who literally would not listen to her, pay attention to her, care for her. By the way, not just the mother of his child, the mother of his second child. So like he already knows how scary her first pregnancy was, how much at risk she was, how she could have, I mean, you can die from preeclampsia. And he literally was like, no, love, no, like just wait. Like she asked him like 3 different times for help. And he was like, can't you wait? Cross your legs, hold it in. No, I'm not. Like it was the most, just throw him, like send him to space and have him never come back. He sucks. Okay, that's my zero. My hero is gonna be, I haven't given this to her in a minute, and honestly, she always deserves it because I love her so much, but I'm gonna give my hero to Phyllis because she was just so stellar. And like, I know that she worked with Dr. Turner on Michael's case and everything, but Phyllis she just struck the right note every single time, and she was so sweet, and the way that she talked to him was so great. And honestly, her poker face when she read that aftercare letter from the hospital was sublime. Like, honestly, give me that skill and ability to like just be so neutral and professional when you need to be. And like even the small moment, like when Mrs. Higgins came out and said that comment and Dr. Turner like snapped, but then Phyllis was like, I get it, babe. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't love that, but you could tell that she like knew that her friend like what she meant, and she wasn't trying to be rude, but she just said something like a little, whatever. And Phyllis she's great. I love Phyllis. I haven't given Phyllis a hero in a while, and she's more than deserving. So,
well, also special shout out to Miss Higgins for helping her, being like Poirot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Girls,
right.
Next week,
it was a good one. And next week, we are doing Series 10, Episode 5. So if you want to watch along and listen with us. And in the meantime, if you want to follow us on all social media, such as Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So, yeah. And also, we're on YouTube if you want to follow us. You can't see our faces or anything, although update on that soon. So,
or have you already, or maybe you've already even had the update by the time this is out. Do you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll be a bit cryptic there in case it's not there, and that you'd probably listen again.
Yeah. Also, this is not important, but season 10 is good, you guys. I know. I mean, my opinion, to take that for what it's worth. As we know, I said how good season 9 was in comparison to season 8, but season 10 is like keeping the energy going.
I was a bit annoyed at today's episode because it was so full. I thought it was too many storylines we had to write down because we were doing writing notes.
Honestly, I wrote the synopsis and I was like, "There's more." When I wrote lastly, I literally was writing that, and then I was like halfway done, and I was like, "No, but what about Trixie and Matthew?" And
that was a lot again, though, because it was all interlocked. Brilliant, love it.
Well, yeah, it's just a lot cram jam full into these episodes, but I'm excited to see what's coming. Boo, 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 boo.
Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.